I've never been close to my mom. Ever since I was a little girl, we never really got on the same page. I don't know what it was. I would normally see little girls having the time of their lives with their moms. They'd go shopping, they'd watch movies, they'd make cookies and so on. But no, I don't have any memory, even similar to that. Mom and Dad got divorced when I was 8 years old. I don't know what happened between them, and I never asked. Nothing changed in my life, really. Only the fact that I wouldn't see Mom anymore. I moved in with my dad, who was the best person in the entire world. He would always do anything in his power so that I would get what I want. Living with him for the past 9 years has been a dream. Unfortunately, my dad died about a month ago. He passed away in a tragic car accident while he was coming home from work one night. It was raining and the visibility was limited. Another car coming from the opposite direction lost control and smashed headfirst into my dad's car. He died on the spot without any hope of surviving. So, because I was 17 at the time, I had to move in with my mom. I was a minor. I couldn't live on my own, even though I was perfectly capable of doing so. But the judge said that I needed to stay with an adult. I haven't seen her in such a long time. I did see her 2 times, but briefly. It seemed like she didn't want anything to do with me. And the day came to move in with her. An Uber left me in front of her door. She didn't even bother to pick me up. That's just great. She didn't even come to the door to greet me, I said to myself while I stood in front of her house, with my bags by my side. Slowly, I started dragging them up the stairs. Step by step, I felt like they were getting heavier and heavier. The distance from the ground to the door was about 10 steps, but added to that the weight of the luggage, and I could barely keep my balance. Finally, I arrive up there. I didn't know what to do. Should I knock or should I go in? She is my mom after all. Maybe I should knock, I kept thinking to myself. I made the decision to just go into the house. As soon as I reached out my hand to turn the doorknob, I heard a sharp scream coming from inside. I immediately opened the door. Mom, are you okay? I asked while looking around for her. Yeah. Who taught you to come into a house without knocking first? She said. The voice came from a different room, so I abandoned my luggage in the hallway and went over to see her. Hi, Mom, I said as soon as I saw her in her bedroom. But something was off. She was sitting in the middle of the bed, with her back turned towards the door, doing something there. I couldn't see, but I saw her hands moving. Shut up, you'll scare them, she said while doing something with her hands. I asked what she was doing, and at the same time I approached her. As I got right next to her, I could see. She had a big snake in her arms, and in a bowl, there were some white mice. It's dinner time, she said while laughing hysterically. I got scared a little and took a few steps back. She then turned around at me. She asked me if I wanted to see how cute Johnny Boy was. This is the name she gave to her snake. Come closer, look at him, she told me while smiling in a strange way. I felt uncomfortable, but the moment I saw that huge and disgusting snake swallow that little and defenseless mouse whole, I got sick. Excuse me, I said while running out of the room. I went straight to the bathroom, and after I searched for it, not knowing where the rooms were, I just threw up everything I ate that day. That's disgusting, my mom said while hearing me doing it. I told her that I couldn't stand the sight of that defenseless little creature being eaten alive. How can you enjoy such things? I asked her while getting my head out of the toilet bowl and heading towards the sink to clean my face. So you'll be living with me, huh? I haven't seen you since you were a kid. You're not as good looking as me, that's for sure, my mom told me before turning around and going to Johnny Boy to feed him the second mouse, I presumed. She didn't show me where my room would be. I just looked around the house and found one that looked like no one sleeps in there. It had a small bed for one person, a dresser, and a small window, with the glass cracked. It didn't look homey at all, but I thought that with a little bit of patience and a lot of creativity, I could make this room much cozier. Later that evening, for dinner, I had to look in the fridge by myself. As I understood, my mom did not cook. She would just order food. But of course, on the first night I came into her house, she only ordered for herself, saying that she didn't think I was hungry because I looked a little bit too fat. So, as I was looking through the fridge, I found a chocolate bar and half a banana. It seemed that would be my dinner for the night, until the next day when I'll go and I'll buy some groceries. I ate those things and I just went to bed. At around 2 a.m., I felt something cold and wet on my chest. It was pretty heavy too. I thought I was dreaming as I woke up, but my eyes were still closed. I tried to turn on the other side, but I just couldn't. It was something that weighed me down. I opened my eyes and I screamed as hard as my lungs could let me. "Take this thing off me!" I yelled at my mom, while there on my chest, her giant snake was slithering around. She came into my room and she started yelling at me, saying that I'll hurt her snake. Then after she took it off me, she smacked me in the face. I was speechless. I told her I don't have to stand for this nonsense, and I got up and started to pack. "Where do you think you're going?" she asked. "I'm leaving," I told her. But out of nowhere, she grabbed my arms, putting them at my back. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. She forced me to go in one direction, and we arrived at one door. "You're not going anywhere," she yelled before she opened the door and pushed me down the stairs. It was the basement. I hurt my arm pretty bad during the fall. It was pitch dark, and it felt like I was standing on mud. It was wet and soft. I got my phone out of my pocket and turned on the flash. My heart missed a beat as I saw that I was standing on maybe 100 snakes, all slithering around down there. I screamed, but all I could hear was my mom laughing. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. She didn't know that I had my phone with me, so I immediately called the police. They arrived in a flash and managed to get me out of there. My mom was soon checked into an institution for people with mental issues. The snakes were taken to different zoos, and I eventually got to live with my aunt, my dad's sister, until I went to college. I never heard anything about my mom since that day, and I'm really sorry that it ended up like this. Ever since I was a kid, I'd spend time with rich people. My dad died when I was younger. I think I was about 10 years old. He was a very successful lawyer, and he was the reason we were wealthy, and we were part of an exclusive social scene. After my father's death, my mom recently remarried, but she didn't just marry anyone. She married the richest guy in Chicago. He was a billionaire, worth over $3 billion. I mean, we had money before. Our net worth was around $10 million. But to go from that to billionaire level was altogether different. Believe me when I say it's something completely different. We had money before, but nothing like this. And I just want to say that when you have that much money, you have some crazy hobbies as well. Crazy to the common folk, but to him, it was completely normal. I'll tell you about it soon. One day, we all went on a vacation. The destination was an exotic and extravagant place. I won't say the name, but it was really something crazy. Everything was amazing. It was just the three of us. Well, at least that's what I thought. But as soon as we landed at the airport, a car with two guys in it awaited him. He went ahead with them, and me and my mom took a different car to the hotel. It seemed like he brought some of his crew with him. The next day, while my mom was out doing her own thing, I believe she was at the spa, or maybe she was getting a massage, I heard my stepdad talking with someone in his office. Yes, he had an office, even in a 5-star resort. They were talking about going on a hunting trip. They were discussing big prey and how they are clever and how they would need some sort of gun. I didn't quite understand everything they went on about. So, being curious by nature, I opened the door to his study and I asked him if I could go with them. The two were surprised to see me. It was like they were hiding or something, and I wasn't supposed to hear their conversation. Well, you're not experienced enough, my stepdad told me while smiling. Yeah, I know that, but maybe I could tag along and observe. How could I gain experience if I don't go hunting? I told him while smiling back to him. I knew I got him. You make a valid point, son. You really do. Tell you what, I'll promise you we'll go hunting when we get back home so that you can start with smaller prey and build up from that, he said while putting his hand on my shoulder. That sounds great, I told him. Then I left the office. I was pretty disappointed, but maybe he was right. Maybe the game was too large for me and he was just looking out for my safety. I guess I just had to wait until we got home so that I could go on my first hunting trip. Later in the day, I found out that they were going hunting on a nearby island. He told my mom that it was filled with boars and other wild and big animals. I spent the rest of the day by the pool and eating a lot of sweets, but I was still thinking about hunting. So in the morning, they took their guns and they got on a boat to go to the island he was talking about. I was really curious and I couldn't sleep all night. I had to see what it was like. Even though I wouldn't shoot anything, I would just observe. So, the next thing I did was pay a guy to take me to that particular island. He had a small and quiet boat. You couldn't really hear it. When I got there, I snuck around so that my dad wouldn't see me. I saw him, along with 2 other guys, preparing their rifles. They were inside some sort of modern hunting cabin. After they left, I went inside because I didn't want to stay under the trees surrounded by bugs and other animals without anything to protect myself. Inside, I saw that they had everything they needed, even a lot of TVs. So I went to the fridge, grabbed a Coke, and turned on the TV. But as I would soon find out, it was not just a TV, it was a monitor. They were all monitors, and I saw different parts of the island. While looking at it, I saw my dad with a friend of his. I thought it was cool to see him hunt, even though it was just on a monitor and I wasn't right there next to him. Soon I saw another man on the screen, but he didn't have a gun, and he seemed like he was running. And then I saw another, dressed in a t-shirt without any gear or gun, hiding behind a tree. I thought it was strange. Why would they be allowed to go hunting? Maybe they have a different role or something, I thought to myself. Soon after, I saw my dad coming from a bush right behind one of the guys. "I got you now," I could hear my dad say. The cameras had microphones, but I didn't understand what he meant. There were no animals in sight. Slowly, I could see him raise his rifle and point it towards the guy's head. I could hear the man crying and begging my stepdad to stop, but he didn't flinch. The only thing he did was pull the trigger. I was speechless. The man was right there, dead on the ground, in a pool of his own blood. I looked at another monitor. I saw one of Dad's friends kill another person. After that, they were all cheering. They even put a foot on one guy's head. I went to the bathroom and I threw up. I couldn't stand it anymore. Then I saw they were coming back, so I rushed out of the cabin and headed towards the boat. The guy waited for me and he took me back to the resort. For the rest of the day, I stayed in my hotel room. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to see anybody. Later that night, my dad came into the room and he asked me, "What's wrong, son? Are you okay?" I replied saying, "Nothing's wrong." Then he told me and said, "Exactly." He continued, "I saw the Coke in the cabin. I know you were there. You wouldn't understand why we were doing that. And this will remain between you and me, right? I don't want your mom to find out, because it would be a shame if she came with me on a hunting trip and something went wrong." I understood that he was really dangerous. From that moment on, I never spoke a word about it.
I listened to my mother's lecture with a frown on my face. She was reminding me that I was supposed to eat healthy all the time. She continually tells me that junk food is bad for me and has really bad consequences. I was the only child, and we were a happy family of 3 before my dad died. Ever since my dad died, she has been so particular about what we eat. My dad was working at a business firm that demanded a lot from him. He always used to complain about how stressful his job was. He started to eat a lot of junk food and drank alcohol because he claimed that it was a stress reliever. My dad died a few months ago, and the autopsy said the things he was consuming destroyed his liver and there was no way he could recover from it. My mom went into shock and had to go for therapy. Those few weeks were very tough for me. I had to grieve my dad and also watch my mom spiral down a rabbit hole of despair. She was 37 years old and she hardly took care of herself. "Anna, are you listening to me?" my mom asked. I jerked out of my reverie and looked at her. "You're just 16. You can't afford to make the mistakes your father made." I nodded. What else could I do? After her lecture, my mom threw out all the junk food and warned me not to order any takeout. Everything in our fridge was either veggies, fruits, or grains. She consulted a nutritionist that gave her a diet plan and the kind of food we can eat. I was taking it slowly. The reality had not yet dawned on me. The next day, I was craving pizza and ordered it immediately. It got delivered and I went to pay for it. I was eating the last slice in the living room when my mom came home. I froze mid-bite and watched as my mom's face got red with anger. She took a deep breath and dropped her bag on the floor. I shot up from the couch and started to tell her that I was sorry and that it would never happen again. With tears in her eyes, she told me she didn't want to lose me too. Throughout the coming weeks, she monitored me a lot. She would spy on me even when I went out on dates with my boyfriend. My mom made life hell for me. I felt so suffocated and unhappy. My boyfriend Mark was getting tired of all her antics. I can't keep seeing you if your mom is always going to be on the lookout for whether you eat healthy or not. I sighed in frustration. Mark had been patient enough. The last time we went to the movies, Mark bought popcorn. Even though I tried to resist the urge to eat it, I found my fingers going inside the bowl. The next thing was that I received a smack on my head. Mark and I looked back only to see my mom in the seat behind us. I told Mark that I understood and we decided not to go out anymore. I was in chains. I struggled with all my might, but I couldn't get free. A huge donut rolled up to me and my stomach rumbled. I was very hungry. The donut rolled away from me, followed by different junk food, pizza, cake, and pies. I groaned, yanking my chains. Then a huge broccoli hopped to me, rubbing itself on me. I screamed as other veggies joined in and tried to smother me. In front of me was a mirror. My reflection started to eat the veggies, ravenous. I watched in horror as my reflection shrunk in size and my hair started to fall out. My scream woke me up. I made a decision then. I was going to eat what I wanted to eat. I won't end up like I did in my nightmares. In school, I bought some donuts and ate them in the bathroom. When I felt guilty that I disobeyed my mother, I told myself that I would just eat a little that wouldn't even matter. It looked like I had found the perfect solution to my predicament. I thought that the junk food would make me increase in size and weight, so I started to cut back on what I ate. I would eat just once a day and sometimes not eat throughout the whole day. I continued to eat all the junk food I wasn't allowed to and would throw them up almost immediately. My mom noticed that I was getting really thin and she complained to her nutritionist. When she talked to me, I told her I was eating everything my mom provided and nothing more. I told myself that I was really not eating those junk foods if I ate them in little quantities. The next day after school, I went to my room and started to eat the pie I bought. My mom would be home soon, so I rushed to finish the pie. When I was done, I walked to my bathroom and leaned over the toilet bowl. Sounds of retching filled my room. I shoved my fingers deep inside my throat and vomited the pie. I rinsed my mouth and my face. When I turned back to go to my room, I saw my mom standing in the doorway with tears streaming down her face. I froze and wanted to tell her that I could explain, but as I opened my mouth to talk, the words escaped me. I fell down to the floor and cried, covering my face with my hands. "I'm sorry," I sobbed. "It's so hard, Mom. I can't do it." My mom was crying and she came to hug me on the floor. "Oh, Anna, I'm really sorry. I didn't know this would happen. I just didn't want to lose you too." After we cried for a while, my mom ordered pizza and told me I could eat it without any fear or guilt. We ate it together and I had to control the urge to run to my bathroom to throw it up. My mom started to buy the junk food she denied us of and took us off the diet. She stopped monitoring me and let me eat out. Sometimes I still had nightmares and would wake up screaming. Once in a while, I couldn't resist the urge to force myself to throw up. When I told my mom, she took me to a psychologist for therapy and I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa. I had to go for therapy sessions once every 2 weeks. My mom had to go for therapy too. She blames herself for what happened to me and fell into depression. Little by little, my mom realized that she couldn't have controlled what happened to my dad and that she should forgive herself for almost ruining my life. I supported her growth and was happy when she started seeing someone else. The damage was already done to me, and I could only hope that I got better.
The high-pitched sound of the siren was what woke me up from my sleep. I looked outside my window to see police officers pointing guns at our entrance. They looked so ready to take down whoever was going to walk out the door. They yelled at us to come out, but I watched as my father crept and locked the door. I looked as I tried to understand what was going on. My parents were acting like criminals. What could he have done? He was a man with a solid reputation and a flourishing bakery business. I never thought about him doing something illegal. He was a perfect dad, but right now, doubts clouded my head. I walked downstairs with imaginations in my head, hoping to get some answers from my mom. I walked in on her crying with a glass of wine in her hand, probably to help with the feelings she was going through. I called out to her gently, hoping my voice would provide comfort to her. "Tanya, I'm sorry, but I didn't know it was going to get to this. We had everything planned. Just one mistake and everything came crashing down. They're coming for me. I know it. I can feel it," she said before bursting into tears again. I was more confused. Dad was not the only one that was in trouble. Mom was included. They had their money. They were billionaires, one of the richest couples in the city. Every nook and corner of the city knew about the Bells family and how nice they were. On top of that, Dad was a natural philanthropist, helping those in need with no conditions attached, and Mom always backed him up, pushing him to be better. As their child, I enjoyed the benefits that came with this. I never lacked anything. Whatever I wanted was always provided for me. My schoolmates respected me because of my parents. I asked her what she meant with a confused look on my face. "I don't know how you'd take it. You'd probably hate your dad." "I'm sorry, Tanya," she said. "Mom, cut the crap and get to the story or the history of whatever you did." The police were outside our house and she was acting so dramatic. "It's just crazy how wanting to be a rich human who can afford whatever he or she wants pushes you to do crazy things," she said. I don't know if I was supposed to be annoyed or patient, but I stood still as I waited for her to continue. "Your father and I are not what we seem like." "Mom, you are driving me crazy. Will you get to the point?" I asked. "In the disguise of bakers, we run a hidden organization where we deliver of all kinds to the premium clients." But we own a chain of bakeries, right?" I asked, confusion evident in my voice. She only looked at me, embarrassment plastered on her face. She ought to be. She was an embarrassment right now, and that was the only word to define it. My dad walked back in, looking at my mom with shock in his eyes. I guess he didn't want me to be aware of their deeds. I asked my dad if it was true, but he just stood there staring at my mother. "How could you?" I yelled. "Just for the sake of some money? How could you stoop so low?" I just couldn't wipe the disgust off my face. "Some money?" my mom shouted back. "Look all around you, Tanya. Such a life of luxury and comfort doesn't come by selling cakes. Your father and I worked our butts off to give you the life we could only dream of when we were your age. So you better watch your words or I'll rip out that sharp tongue of yours. And it's not just us, all the people who work for us. We've made them a fortune. So you know what you're doing is actually wrong? It's not just about the money you earn or the money those girls and boys get from it," I said with tears at the edge of my eyes. I told him that the money earned with dignity was the best and walked out on them. I walked back to my room. My own parents, my dad, I trusted him more than that. He was the sweetest person, a philanthropist. I was almost in my room when I heard the high-pitched sound again. The cops entered our house. I just stood in front of my bedroom, numb, not knowing if I was supposed to feel sorry for my parents. "Tanya?" My dad's voice rang through the house. I used to be the one who jumped out of joy when I heard his voice, but this time, I couldn't help but be overcome by mixed emotions when I heard him say that. He walked up to me, his eyes swollen, probably from tears. He was an emotional person. He begged me to answer him. "I don't know what you want me to say or do. To hug you after hearing what you did and how you became a billionaire? Why are you even here? You ought to rot in prison. That's what people who do what you did deserve." "Sweetheart, I know that right now you're going through hundreds of emotions, but I can tell you that what your mom said wasn't the truth," he said, holding out his hands to hold me, but I only moved further. "And what makes you think I would believe you?" I asked. "Because I was an honest, simple baker. What I didn't have an option." For the first time, I really looked into his eyes to tell if he was telling the truth or lying, but I couldn't tell. He explained to me that Mother was never satisfied with her life. She always yearned for more, and to do that, she was willing to go to any length. "She told me you guys did everything together," I said, walking towards him. I trusted him, and to have heard he did something like that just broke me into pieces. With the little hope I had left in me, I walked towards him, hoping it was really the truth that he was serving me. "She's not what she pretends to be, and I never wanted her dark side to be revealed to you. After all, she is your mother," he said. My father told me that all their wealth would be confiscated and the house would be taken away from them. He gave me the details to a trust fund he had set up for me. He said it would be sufficient to take me through college. I hugged him and closed my eyes, hoping that it was all just a nightmare. But then, as my eyes opened, I watched in horror as the police forced their way in and restrained my father and mother. Tears streamed down my face. I wanted to yell. I wanted to tell them my dad was innocent, that he was forced into all this. But as I looked at him, I saw resignation in his eyes. He was prepared to face whatever would happen. And just like that, he was gone.
Let me tell you about a time I used to work at a convenience store. I had seen a lot of things going down there, especially at night. All types of weird people came into the store. One time, an old lady came in. She seemed harmless enough. She said hello when she came through the door, which seemed like a wonderful thing to me. I mean, no one even bothers to acknowledge the person at the cash register. Sometimes, not even when they want to pay something. So, the old lady comes in, and because she seemed so nice, I didn't think anything about it. After almost 20 minutes of looking through the aisles, she came to the counter with a can of peas. I scanned the product, and she was on her way. But before she went out of the store, a chocolate bar, an expensive bottle of wine, and several bags of candy fell from inside her big coat. Another time, 2 little boys came in. They seemed like they were twins, although not identical. They were about 12 or 13 years old. As I was minding my business at the cash register, I heard a commotion, so I went to see what was going on. As I arrived at the scene, cereal and juice were spilled on the floor, and the boys were laughing and laughing with their phones out. It seemed like they were filming a TikTok or something. But I'm not here to tell you about all these harmless things that happened at the store. I have one story that stands out, and it does by a mile. It's about one particular guy. I'll never forget his face. It was a boring Wednesday afternoon. Nothing special about that day. Well, actually, nothing special happened all week, and I was grateful for that. I like things to be in a certain way. A guy walked in. He was about 6 feet tall, but very skinny. It seemed like he didn't eat a lot at all. Of course, like all the other customers do, he ignored me while I was sitting at the counter and he walked past me, going straight to the frozen food section from what I could see. He grabbed a couple of frozen whole chickens and puts them in his shopping cart. Then, he headed over to the produce section and picked up some tomatoes and potatoes. Nothing out of the ordinary there. After he was done with the vegetables, it seemed like he was heading towards the counter. But I was wrong. He just stopped in his tracks and turned the other way. I couldn't see where he was going, but I had a feeling that something was wrong. Not long after that, I heard a loud noise. I rushed towards the place where the noise came from, and I almost saw all of my peanut butter jars on the floor. The man was just standing there, with his head pointed towards the floor, looking at those jars. "What happened, sir? Are you okay?" I asked him politely.
"Yeah, peanut butter."
That's all he said to me, while still staring at those jars that were rolling by his feet. "Did you do this, sir?" I asked him after he said he was okay.
"It's not my fault,"
he responded before lifting his head and looking at me. Then, without saying another word, he started walking past me, heading towards the counter and putting his chicken and vegetables on it. "Oh, I'll just deal with this later," I told myself, and I headed towards him so I can scan his groceries. I did just that, and after, with a smile on my face, I looked at the guy and said, "Have a good day, sir." But he didn't even look at me. He grabbed his bag and rushed outside the store without even a goodbye. I thought it was rude, but it wasn't the first time that happened, and certainly it wouldn't be the last. I decided not to think any more about it, and I rearranged the peanut butter before returning to the counter. This was my first encounter with that guy. An entire week passed and I didn't see him. Not until next Wednesday. "Hello, sir. How was the chicken?" I greeted him. Again, he didn't acknowledge me. He just headed towards the products. I sighed and tried not to let it bother me. But to be honest, I was getting kind of sick of people not saying hello to me. Another person came in, and to my surprise, she said hello and even asked how my day was going. Finally. "I'm doing very well. How about you?" I responded with a big smile on my face. "I'm great. Just came in for a little bit of shopping," the lady responded while she chuckled. About 10 minutes went by and a loud noise startled me. It sounded exactly as it did the last time that guy was in the store. I went over to check it out, and the peanut butter was on the floor again. "Sir, did you do this?" I asked him. At that point, it was obvious that he was doing it on purpose.
It's not my fault!
He screamed at me, and at that moment, I really lost it. I said that I would go and check the security cameras if he doesn't come clean. The guy started yelling again, telling me the exact same thing, that it's not his fault. "Sir, please leave the store. I'm sorry, but you have to go," I told him. He got even angrier and then shouted again at me.
It's not my fault! It's the peanut butter! It's the peanut butter's fault!
I was left speechless. What did he mean, the peanut butter's fault? While we were going back and forth, the lady that came in earlier approached us. We stopped shouting for a moment as she was right at the peanut butter shelf. She picked up one of the jars. The guy switched his attention towards the lady, looking her in the eyes.
What are you doing?
He asked while almost shouting. "I'm buying it for my son. He's 10 and it's good for his health. I myself have always been a fan of it since I was a little girl," the lady said right before she laughed. It seemed like she relieved the tension, but I was wrong. The guy flipped out and using a ketchup bottle, he first hit the lady's hand, knocking the peanut butter jar out of her hand. Before the lady could react, he smashed the bottle on her neck. The lady starts bleeding all over the floor, and the guy had a look in his eyes that seemed like he was about to commit murder. He was looking me in the eyes, and he took a step towards me. I turned around and ran outside as fast as I could. After I had run a safe distance, I called the cops. They quickly arrived, and they were just around the corner and took the guy to jail. I later learned something about him. Apparently, his mother was deranged and fed him peanut butter for the first 10 years of his life, in breakfast, lunch, and dinner, never missing a day. The guy ran away from his home when he was 11 and has hated peanut butter since then. While I felt bad for the poor guy, his reaction towards the lady was still uncalled for.